you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a mostly different crowd, I think. How many of you were here last time? Just a few, okay. That means we may have to catch up on some basics. I'll backtrack a little bit. But what keeps coming through in the last day or so for me about tonight was I heard when I tried to take a nap this afternoon and I couldn't stop getting downloads, so it wasn't much of a nap. Forget what it was. Well, I'd like tonight to be less of a didactic philosophical lecture and more of an experience. And my real intention is that people have an actual experience for themselves, of themselves. And I'm just a messenger. There's nothing here, okay, that's got anything to do with me. And I also heard, well, I'm a doorway or a gateway, but it's a gateway to yourself, not to anything else. So it's kind of a paradox. It's just to turn your consciousness, turn your being, turn who you are back to the source of who you are, back to your own presence, back to your being. And although we hear about this, I don't think there's anybody in the room that doesn't have that languaging, that doesn't hear and speak to everyone else and see it in everyone else, say it to yourself. Oh, I need to come home to myself. I need to look within. The kingdom of heaven is within. To thine own self be true. I am that I am. Oh yeah, everything's inside. All the rest is illusion. And between hearing those words and knowing on some level that they're true, and actually having an experience of it, is a massive gap. And that gap is the cause of all suffering on the planet. Everything that isn't okay is because we aren't actually doing what we know we should be doing. Everybody inherently, intuitively knows the way home, but we're not listening to that still small voice. Why? Mostly because we don't get any validation for it. We live in a world that is constructed on living by, prioritized to, valuing everything that's the opposite of what is actually true. So when we start to have an experience of going in the direction of what's real, what's authentic, what's true for us, what we encounter is not only no validation and support from parents, from teachers, from society, from everything around us that looks back at us and says, I don't know if that's true, you must be crazy. You know? But we then do it to ourselves. And I personally have spent most of my life seriously doubting myself. Like, I must be crazy. And then it goes deeper. I think something's wrong with me because everybody else is different. Anybody here not have that experience in their life? I love the no hand shows when I ask these kinds of questions. You know, I must kind of know the answer, but if anybody ever did raise their hand, I'd say, hey, you know, I got some things to learn from you. Okay. Although there are people who are born with it, that's a whole other subject, and I promised myself I wouldn't go too lateral tonight and try to finish one sentence at a time. But there are beings who are born avatars, or as young people, they wake up and they're profoundly The only problem with those people is they usually don't understand what it's like for the rest of us that are wading through concrete, going in the wrong direction, trying to wake up and find our way home, and lost in it. I remember once I met a healer from England, a very famous healer, and when he was, I think he said 5 years old, he was in a bomb shelter in London with his mother, and there was fear all over the place. The bombs were dropping, and he looked around and he saw all the terror as a 5-year-old and simply said, that doesn't feel good. I don't think I'm going to do that. And he said, I've never had any fear for the rest of my life. Well, most of us don't do that when we're 5 years old. And so this is a man that came in, his particular life lessons, his mission, whatever, not better than anybody else, but he didn't have to go through healing that in himself. He didn't have to go through finding his way home to that. He just popped in one day. He already had it. He also didn't really know how to share it with anybody. That's the key point. We all struggle and fight with all the suffering that we go through and all of the hardships we're experiencing and the lessons and everything else that makes life so hard, and go, why me? Is there any purpose to this? But this is how we learn. And since we're constantly growing, you can't stop growing or you're dying. Just quoted the Dylan thing to Clint last night. If you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. I think I said that last time. I love that one. You have to keep changing. So these people will actually get very frustrated with everyone else. And I remember him saying, I don't understand people. I don't know why they have fear. Why don't they just drop it? And it's the same as going to somebody who's really depressed and they're in their hole and they're struggling around, and you go, cheer up. Just, stop hanging out there. Look in the bright side of things. You go do a few affirmations. That'll fix you. Why don't you just step out of it? Go to the gym, Well, nothing deserves a punch in the nose more than somebody saying that to somebody who's in a situation and the person telling them how easy it is to heal themselves. To wake up, be enlightened. You're already God. You are already God. And what I've seen, what I've been contemplating lately, looking at some of the top-notch, big-name New Age teachers, I won't mention any of them, but I'm sure you've all looked at their websites and listened to their DVDs and everything else, is that they're incredibly awake, realized beings, like many teachers have always been. They're experiencing love, surrender, bliss, oneness, whatever you want to call it, full presence. They're in ecstasy all the time. They love everything and everyone. There's no separation. And yet, when they share that, what I hear them doing is going, this is what it's like. This is who you really are. This is who you can be. And we go, oh, I really want to be that. Well, the moment I do that, now there's where they're at and where I'm at. And that's a horrific gap. And that engages, first of all, comparison. I'm not good enough. Must be something wrong with me. Oh, and I have to get there, then I'll be okay. So immediately, you look at somebody like that, you start to emulate their state, desire their state, you go into lack, not good enough, suffering, seeking, separation, and this is supposed to be spiritual teachers that are helping you get home to yourself. Okay. Now, and I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just pointing out what is. Okay, there isn't a judgment here, because they have a wonderful role. I wouldn't for a moment tell them they shouldn't be where they're at. Like, wow, good for you, wonderful place to be. And they do stimulate people's longing. There's a paradox in personal growth that the suffering that you experience and your desire to get out of it is what motivates you to grow. On the other hand, your desire to get out of it, your resistance to it, and you're trying to be somewhere else is exactly what gets in the way of you being able to grow. Okay? It's a great paradox. my final answer for that has never gotten past the simple statement: it happens when it happens. And that kind of gets rid of all of the mind stuff around it. We do what we do, and it matters at any given moment what's true for somebody. There are no formulas, there are no objective teachings. There's no absolute, this is the way you need to do it. You know, you should be really trying hard. There's an old teaching about this. Master's in the boat with the disciple, and the disciple says to the master, "Master, what is it going to take for me to get enlightened?" And the master throws the disciple over the side of the boat, pushes his head underwater, holds him there. Finally, he lets him up, and the disciple comes up, and the master says, "When you want God as much as you wanted that breath of air, you'll find it." Now there's another story. That's only half one side of it. The other side is there are two disciples, and they're sitting with the master, and an impatient disciple says, "Master, how long is it going to take me to get enlightened?" And the master points to the tree overhead and says, "As many lifetimes as there are on this tree, if you're lucky." And the impatient disciple goes, "Well, forget it. I'm going into town, make some money. You know, chase the girls, get drunk, whatever. I'm not going to bother. That's too much." The other disciple says, "Oh, is that all?" and becomes instantly enlightened. Okay, so are you to let go of it and become the space of trust and receiving and flowing, non-attachment, non-striving, non-seeking, non-trying, surrender, openness? Or do you have to fiercely go for it with everything you've got? And the answer, for those of you that already know a little bit of how I talk about things, is this is the elephant. Brief review from last week. I love to use the metaphor, the shorthand, where I'll just say that's the tail, that's the trunk. Got to look at the whole elephant. This is the story of the blind men who were taken to an elephant and asked to describe it. And one grabs the tail, and one grabs the trunk, and one grabs the leg. Oh, it's a rope, it's a snake. And so whenever there appears to be a contradiction within our beings that's unresolvable, like, well, should I be trying or should I be relaxing? You know, should I move to New York or should I stay in Salt Lake? Should I, whatever it is, whenever a question arises that creates conflict, we're in the basic model of what human conflict is, which is the mind posing things against each other and going, it needs to be this or it needs to be this. So I'm in confusion, I'm in conflict, I don't know how to resolve this. What should I do? What should I think? What's true? But if you realize that in all conflict and paradox, the answer comes from expanding consciousness by relaxing the need to place one thing against another thing. And in the relaxation of consciousness, which is an expansion of consciousness, you see how both things are true. The elephant includes the trunk and the tail. And the resolution to a conflict will happen at the next higher level, as Einstein said. You can't solve a problem at the level it was created at. You can't solve a problem created by the mind and its confused thinking by using the mind. The problem is the mind, or that you're stuck in the mind, not that you can then figure your way out of it. So as soon as you step out, it ceases to be an issue. This is what I call looping. We live in mind loops. And mind loops are internally consistent realities. In other words, what you're experiencing is what you're creating, is what you're experiencing, is what you're creating, and you're stuck in it. Like Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. It just keeps going and going and going and going. Okay, and we can't seem to get out of these things. Well, someone who's hanging on to the tail of the elephant, and that's their reality, as long as they're holding on to the tail, they can't see the whole elephant because their focus, their view is myopic. This is the problem with our whole culture, is that it's analytical, it's myopic, it's reductionist. We fail to see the whole picture, so we're not holistic, we're disconnected from nature, from the environment, from each other, from ourselves, from everything. And that has to do with a point of view that's narrow. And there's nothing wrong with being able to focus on something as long as you don't lose the connection to everything else. So if you can focus on, it's okay to hang out and describe the tail as long as you remember I can still see the whole elephant. I'm getting tested tonight. If I sidetrack even a little bit, I can't remember what I was talking about. Anyone remember? Clint's always good at that.
Can I share something, Ken?
Sure.
That you shared earlier that I was really enjoying the conversation around. That was the desire for enlightenment is important, but at the same time, it's also the catch-22. It's that desire of not wanting to be this, I want to be something else is the catch. David Hawkins' work, Power versus Force, he talks about states of consciousness, and one of them is desire. It's one of the lower ones. But then in the preface of that book, he talks about, people ask me, how does one achieve this state of enlightenment? For me, it began with a great desire. And then you see desire is one of the lower states of consciousness too. That catch right there. So we could say more about that.
Oh, I can say tons of that. I can say more about everything. I'll flag two things and we'll see if we can segue into both of them from what you said. One is the nature of attachment, and as the Buddha said, the cause of all suffering is desire and attachment. And we can look at the healthy meaning of desire versus the clinging, demanding, lack desire, which is what he was speaking about, which I tend to call craving, as the Buddhists calls it. The other is when Hawkins is talking about those different levels, that can get us into the whole subject of transitional teachings and how what's right for one person isn't right for somebody else. And the nature of growth, the nature of the universe, the nature of everything is that it has to keep moving. It doesn't just stop. And human beings go into a conflict, in a sense, with their biology and their conditioning and their false beliefs, that comfort, safety, certainty, what's already known is where I want to hang out, because there's no risk there. That's what any animal's going to know. If I already know what's here, I don't have anything to worry about. It's the unknown that may jump on me while I'm walking up your tree that I got to worry about. Okay, so something new is unpredictable, and as long as there's any possibility or fear that I can be injured, hurt in any way, then unpredictability becomes something uncomfortable. On the other hand, when things are comfortable and familiar and the same every day, that's deadly. There are stories about, there's some kind of parable about a man who goes to heaven, and I'm going to just change it here, but he goes to heaven and God says, well, I forget it. He lives a certain life where he has all of these desires and things that he's into. And he finally dies, and he goes, gosh, I must be in heaven because every day beautiful women are sent to him, and lobster feasts and money and everything he wants. And the next day he wakes up and it's the same thing again and the same thing again. And finally he says to God, God, this is getting boring. Every time I gamble, I win. And all I have to do is think of a beautiful woman, and 5 of them show up, and I have more food than I can eat, and I'm really getting sick of steak and lobster. Could you change the menu? I thought heaven was supposed to be, really exciting, and this is getting really boring. And God looks at him and says, who says you're in heaven? Okay? If the same thing happens over and over and over again, our beings quickly get very, very looking at this is that consciousness expands. And that's so a priori. If you don't believe it, I love to say to people, just go home and play with it. Just look at it, see if it isn't true or if it is true for you. Including more and more and more is what we do, because where we're not is one with everything, and experiencing ourselves as not only seeing the elephant but the herd, but the whole savannah and all the other herds, and then the whole continent and the planet and the galaxy. And okay, it's all there to be experienced. There's a lot more than what we experience in our limited little focus. So, in order to learn, in order to grow, it always has to be something new. It has to be something that we haven't experienced before. That gets us into the unknown and the safety part. Just a little piece waiting to come through, so we'll wait and sit quietly, which is nice. This is still the transitional teachings part. Okay. So, the nature of growth is that it will always be something new. And if we cling to what's comfortable, it's deadly. And it becomes a prison, like I said last time. Life is a bridge, don't build your house on it, don't get stuck. And so a teaching, like we spoke about at one point, just activating the desire for enlightenment can be a huge life-changing move for somebody. First, even admitting that we're suffering is more than most of humanity can do. More than really almost anybody in humanity can do. That's why these groups are so special. Everyone else is in denial. Oh God, I'm hurting inside. I feel disconnected from myself. I'm in an inner conflict. I don't feel good enough. I was abused as a child. I hate my boss. It's his fault. Okay, blame is one of the primitive things. Anger, aggression. It's not about me. It's somebody else's fault. And not only that, I'm actually happy, I'm successful, I've got loads of money, I'm looking good, I can control things around me. Denial, illusion, false beliefs, pure phony. You know what I told you I called last week bullshit Buddhists, people going around with false personas to cover up what's really being felt, which isn't who they really are. That's the second layer. The first layer, the surface layer, is the public presentation, the outward persona of how we want to act because we don't really even want to get close to all the pain we have inside. And it isn't until we break that and start owning it and go, God, I really don't like the way I am. I don't like the way I acted with that person. How come nobody loves me? I was just such a jerk, or I'm feeling really judgmental and negative. And we start to realize that. And at the same time, we start to get in touch with our pain. Most people won't grow. Present company not included, because I hope most of you have learned that once you get that fire inside that Dale's talking about, once you get that fire inside, if you want to grow, then something changes. Instead of avoiding it, it comes from first admitting, boy, I'm in pain. Okay. Once you admit that you're in pain, you have the possibility of doing something about it. And that's where we really, instead of running away from it, which most people are doing, we do a 180-degree reverse and go, let's jump into the suffering. Ooh, what am I feeling in here? And where did it come from? And what we find out is that the deepest layer of our being is exactly parallel, almost a mirror image on a different dimension of the one that we were trying to act like. Okay? We already are. There already is perfection. That's why I was talking about all the teachers who are saying, this is who you really are. But for me to sit here and tell you your love, your God, your oneness, your compassion, your joy, your bliss, thanks a lot. Okay, and I may be able to transmit some of that. There can be a direct resonance with the being who's got that, and you feel it for a little while, and then you go home and you lose it, and you go back more. Pretty much, it's an addictive fix to keep going back to the guru. It's spiritual cocaine. Okay, it feels really good. You've been temporarily relieved from your suffering, but if you haven't faced all the stuff that keeps coming up that gets in the way, you can't hold it for yourself. And say, okay, how do I get to be who that person is? That person has stepped back into themselves, is taking responsibility for owning and being with the exact experience they're having at this moment. And the first layer that comes up in the noble art of admitting and owning things is to say, God, I'm angry, I'm hurting, I'm judgmental, or whatever. Okay, but we don't try to fix it. There's actually nothing to fix. There is something to go, all right, there's a reason why I'm acting this way, and I even hate myself in a second level. There are a number of ways in which we start not liking ourselves and disconnecting. I don't like the behavior that I have, which came from a part of myself that I've already decided isn't good. That's a lovable part that's been distorted by my upbringing, which I also don't like, and then I really feel bad. Then it tries to get my attention with bad behavior, and then I don't like myself about that, and pretty soon we're layered with all of these resistances to who we are. So what healing is about is having the safe space to, in any moment, in every moment, just go, what's true? What's authentic? And then, where we're closing this gap that I'm talking about, is how do you actually take that all the way back to find out that you are all of those things you really hope to be once you get all the way home to yourself. And it's true. You just can't take a shortcut. Shortcuts are feel-good. I had a teacher who always said, I'm not a feel-good healer. I love that one. It's like, nope. This is a ruthless encounter with what's real. And the first thing you get to encounter is what you're afraid of, what you're resisting, what you're running from. And there's no way to feel good when that stuff all remains. It's a temporary fix. If you don't do your work, you don't come home. At least that's my opinion. Okay. I'll sort of move on from that, and we'll get to what attachments are about, because I could go on down that track forever. So anyone that doesn't have some sense of what attachment means in this context, and why Buddha said that attachment causes suffering, you all have a sense of that? Okay. You can take that. I love to do cross-cultural quoting from masters, just to remind everyone that these teachings are everywhere. They're in our space, they're in our face. We've all heard them, but most of us haven't stopped to actually take them in and make them real. They're still a little bit out there somewhere. So if we say the cause of all suffering is desire and attachment, we could also say, thou shalt have no other gods before me, meaning I'm not going to be attached to any other gods. I'm not going to give power to something outside of myself. I'm not going to make it more important by attaching to it and having me be connected to that. Seek ye first the kingdom, okay? All else should be added unto you. Lay not up your treasures where moth and rust doth corrupt. And invited that which comes and goes is not the true self. But if you get attached to it, suddenly you think it's real. And anything that you can't let go of owns you. That's it. You can't be free if you need anything other than your own beingness, the experience of yourself, your own presence, to feel okay. If you're looking outside of yourself in a relationship, for money, for job, for health, for the right weather, doesn't matter what it is. When you get it, you feel good. But then your happiness, your sense of well-being and fulfillment is dependent on having that thing. Now you have fear of loss. So along with it comes a price. Oh my God, I got to hang on to this now or I won't be happy anymore. And then you lose it and then you're suffering. Okay? So it is determining how you experience yourself. You've become attached to it. And our identities get involved there. We call identification. Not only do I need that to be okay, but part of my whole image of myself is tied up in having that be a certain way. My philosophy, my looks, where I live, my job, whatever it is, my relationship. And so attachment is the big killer. Now, like all of these things, there are layers of teachings. At different frequencies, each one of these truths has a different interpretation. And if you don't match the teaching to the student, or the level of the teaching to the student, you wind up with problems. So somebody who gets it intellectually, oh, I don't want to be attached to anything. I'm giving my power away. I'm making something more important than my own being. So they walk around being unattached. Unfortunately, that can very easily be just a behavior, a control trip to not be at the effect of things. And what that person is essentially doing is cutting off their aliveness and cutting off their connection to everything. Okay? They're not only cutting off their attachment, they're cutting off their oneness and their connectivity and creating separation. So they're going to suffer while doing a process that they think is creating liberation for themselves. But people don't see these kinds of things when they're in it. The way to deal with an attachment is, as we always talk about these levels, first admit it, recognize it. The first level of humanity is in complete denial, doesn't even know that what we're talking about exists as part of their reality. The next level, the awakening people, the seekers, the one who are like, now I want to figure out what's going on. Why? Well, because I'm suffering. Okay, what is it that doesn't feel good inside me? How awake can I be to notice every time it comes up in my reality? Oh, that didn't feel good. What's that? That's where some of the guidance and the teaching comes in. It's like, that's what this is. Next time that happens, look at this. You'll see what it is. You'll see how it works. This is what you do with it. This is how you transmute it. So an attachment comes in. God, I just realized my car got banged up and I feel awful. Or I didn't get the date that I wanted, or whatever it is, and you start noticing as you're bringing your attention back from out there, starting to pay attention to what's going on inside. That didn't feel good. Ooh, this fits. I must really be attached to that. But then, instead of looking at the out there, instead of even looking at the attachment thing and trying to fix my attachmentness or trying to let go of the object that's out there, I then go, okay, what am I experiencing? Where's this attachmentness coming from? Ooh, there's somebody that doesn't feel so good inside, that's afraid that I'm not going to be okay if, and then you go a little deeper into the fear and you can see where I'm going. You finally get to a wound, to something inside that's really longing to come home to itself. And that's when you begin to be present with yourself. And what that part of you is looking for is you. It's looking for itself. A lot of teachings will say, when you find that part of yourself, love it. That's another level, but there's a deeper layer. All these things are good, but they don't get you all the way there. They're just in evolution, layers of clearing. So let's say I find a place inside, and when I get in there, it's lonely, and it's lost, and it's scared, and it's angry because it's been abandoned, and it's been trying to get your attention for your whole lifetime, and it's been acting out, running around being needy, and running around being controlling, and dominating, and abusive, well, you name it, any of them, they're all the same. Okay, they all have these lovely different flavors to play with, but the bottom line is, hey, I'm here, you're not paying attention to me. So some people act really nice and sweet to get the attention of their parents, and somebody else will act like a rebel, and wind up being a drug dealer and kill the neighbor. It doesn't matter. The core is the same, okay? I've disconnected from myself, and I'm now in false behavior to get what I wasn't getting, that I didn't give to myself, that I can blame my parents and my upbringing on. It's just, again, different levels of the same thing. So, so when we find that part inside, we get connected to it. What it's looking for is not, as I just recently heard, I listened to somebody's seminar, and he was saying, well, when you get there, just say to it, I love you, 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 I love you. And just keep saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. And this is like a big, renowned, world-class teacher right now, okay? Huge following, because he's going to make everybody feel good. He's not going to get them present with what they don't want to experience, although it's pretty close. That was a little too negative for me, what I just said. It's like, he's doing great work, and he's an incredible being. I'm just taking you guys to a different place. As long as I'm inside, looking at this inner child, or whatever you call it, that's going, I'm so scared and lonely, and I never got what I needed when I was a kid, and I don't feel good about myself, and you never listen to me either, because you're afraid to show any signs of weakness, and you're afraid that if you really listen to my needs and what I'm asking for, that people won't love you, and it's not okay to have these feelings and be sad and lonely, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, layers and layers and layers and layers. So I get in there with it, and if I go, oh, I love you, well, I'm already doing a behavior that I think I should be doing that looks like the thing that somebody told me is the way to be to get the result that I want. There's me loving that. I'm still separate from it. I'm not being it. What it wants is for me, this is multiple layers, it wants me to come home to myself. It wants to be loved by the self. It's me wanting God to come into me. It's the same thing on all these different layers. And what it requires is nothing from you, but you're being present with it. That is loving it. In other words, who you are is okay with me. I'm going to feel what it feels like to be you, to have that be me. There's a you and a me, but it's the same. It's just when we have the separation, it appears like there's an adult and an inner child. There's really just one of us coming together from that separation. And when you really get there with it, it's like, wow, I feel so good being me. Thank you. I just healed myself by allowing who I am to be and finding out that who I really am feels really good. And it's okay. And I had sold it out by buying into everybody else's idea of what was wrong with me that created separation at the very beginning. Fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The real message isn't that when Adam and Eve bit of the fruit, they found out they were shameful and had to wear a fig leaf and cover up their nakedness. That's the lie that the churches have given us, that's original sin. There's really something wrong with you, and in order to come home to God, you got to get that you're not okay. That's actually the exact opposite of what's true. The distortion and the deception of the serpent in the Garden of Eden was planting in the innocent's mind that there was something wrong with them. And as soon as they bought it, they bit it. They bit the deception. They bit the lie that there's something wrong with them. Now they're in internal conflict. This is where I started this evening, remember? It's like we think there's something wrong with us because who we are doesn't seem to be okay. So our whole world has been living off of that deception. The original fall from grace was leaving of ourselves by believing that there was something wrong with who we really are. And then layers upon layers, which we can go into ad infinitum. So that's a good stopping point. I promised also that we wouldn't run on too much tonight. How That's pretty good for me. Good stuff. Okay, we could take a break if anybody needs a break at any point. We'll do that. Maybe
I would prefer like no break.
okay.
If anyone individually.
Well, we might just for body comfort to move a little. Somebody said last week, we sat a little too long, and it really is nice to get up. Okay, and get some energy. Okay, let's see.
Sort of like a 7-minute stretch.
Okay, we're going to take a little break, I guess. Sorry, Lori. They voted with their bodies that wanted your instinct. That's the fun part, yeah. But I got to get people kind of stirred up a little bit so some things come to the surface. And I wanted to catch up with the people that haven't been here before. So that's great. Okay. So what actually happens tonight is more dependent on you than it is me. I'm just going to be pretty much the same no matter what happens. But what I've always learned is that the willingness of anyone to step up and share what's going on with them catalyzes a process that heals everybody else in the room. I'm sure you've all seen this in workshops and things. So it's the courage and the desire and the openness of individuals to share what's actually going on that is the biggest gift. And that's the part that I do my best to get some stuff stirred up or press a few buttons or whatever, but it only goes where you take it, not where I take it. And in growth in general, nobody can really give to somebody else anything. Like, you can't get somebody else's state. There is such a thing as a resonance, as a transmission, that when you get around somebody who's happy, everybody kind of gets happy. You get around a puppy or a baby and everybody shifts. So we are all connected that way. I'm talking about something different. Not just the temporary transmission by being in the field of somebody who can hold a space that you like to be around or would like to have inside of yourself, but how do you get there so that you're the transmitter? When does the flame, it's an old Buddhist metaphor, that the flame is burning and the disciple gets close to the master and then the flame jumps over and then the disciple's candle is burning and he can go out because it really isn't coming through anybody to anybody else. It's coming into each one of us individually. And so everybody ultimately has to take responsibility for finding it inside themselves. And anybody that works that to their advantage by having people dependent on them, I would not want to be in their shoes. That's good luck karma, or bad luck karma, okay? So, that being said, what's going on? What's been stimulated, triggered? What? Yeah.
Well, I was determined to come tonight and not cry, because last time I just couldn't stop crying. But I was really asking myself what's coming up for me, and I am not a crybaby, but I couldn't stop crying last week, and I think what it was I have constructed this whole life out of, I'm very intellectual about, I know there's something wrong with me, and I know, I know I just need to find that space, and I'm mad that I'm still upset about something that happened, and I don't want anyone to know about that. But where I'm at right now is I am addicted to having this desire that's just out of reach. And I'm asking myself, I don't even know how to, stop chasing that, that's just out of reach. I don't even, I think that I'm addicted to just the chase. And I was just well, if I sat and said, okay, I'm going to be okay with me, then who am I? Am I still going to have this desire to move forward? That's my quandary right now.
Okay, you got a couple layers there. And we could peel off the layers or just go the direct route. So you're having an experience of chasing after something. Is it okay for you to have that experience? What's that like?
Well, I mean, it's just my life, and yeah, it is okay.
Okay, what's not okay about it?
Because, okay, I'll tell you what's not okay about it is the happiness contingency is always being chased. It's like, well, when I get that, that's just so elusive, just beyond there, then I'll be happy. I'm not like saying,
Okay.
I'll be happy now with the chase. That's what,
Okay,
I guess.
you've been educated enough that your mind's jumping ahead of you. Okay.
that is the problem. It's like,
Yeah.
my intellectualization just makes it look like I'm okay, but I'm really not.
I've got a gift for you.
Okay.
You're unhappy. Start there. That's what's true.
Yes.
And everything you're doing is a strategy to avoid what you don't want to feel about what's true. That's that second layer. You're in touch with your suffering, you're not in denial, but you're trying to get to who you think you should be instead of being who you are. And you get there from here. There's no place but being here to come deeper into yourself and find out who you really are. And these are the demons guarding the temple gate to the inner sanctum. This is all the stuff you don't want to experience. But right on the other side of that is what you really want to experience, but you can't cheat them. You can't sneak through. There's only one doorway, and there are these fierce demons calling your mind's beliefs about who you are that isn't okay. And there's no back door. You just go through that door, and you'll find out that none of it's real, which is the real joke. The more you run from it, the bigger they get. But there's actually nothing there but mind illusions saying it's not okay. That's all of this conditioning. This is the beliefs about ourselves.
So you're saying just be okay being sad, be okay being unhappy.
Okay, yes, but that has a little too much trying in it because you're hearing it with your mind. It's true, but it won't help you to hold it at that level. What will help you is, again, for me to look at you and say, I see that you're unhappy. That's perfect. It's okay. Just feel it. Just let it be. Not to fix it. Not to fix it. It's a part of yourself that wants to have a conversation with you and be included again. You're unhappy. It's unhappy because it has been denied. Your life isn't in alignment with that part of yourself because you haven't been listening to it. It should be unhappy. It's trying to get your attention and tell you something. So you go, hi there. Ooh. Oh, boy, I really feel unhappy. Huh. Is it okay? It can kind of kill you. In fact, the exact opposite. So can you feel that? Just don't do anything. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to move through it. Don't do anything. Just allow yourself to be here as you are. You don't even have to call it anything. What's your mind doing now?
Pulling a blank.
Perfect. That's the right answer. Everything that's going on that's preventing you from being who you want to be is simply mind noise. It's just chatter. It's loops. I should be this and I ought to be trying that and I need to get there and this isn't right, I need to do that and if I did this, I get that. You know, when it fills the field of silence, it just sounds like chatter. It's just noise. It's like static in the frequency, in the energy field. Okay? So that's how we track these things. It doesn't matter what anybody says. These are what I call tricks of the mind. Deflections, bypasses, yes but, no but, if only I could, and desire and attachment and comparison. There's endless ways that we miss being in the moment with ourselves. And when we are, there's nothing going on, but there's nothing to have a commentary and inner dialogue about.
Thank you.
So the answer to everybody's question all the time, it's always the same thing. Everybody's got a slightly different story, but the basic principle, the basic teaching is that number one, everything's already perfect and you're all right, but you don't trust it because you bit of the fruit and you're conditioned that it's not okay, so you're in resistance, and the resistance itself causes more separation and suffering. So then you're really, oh God, now I'm really lost, and pretty soon you're spiraling and you're lost in the wilderness, you know. And the first admonition is stop. Just stop. And ask what's going on right now. What am I experiencing that's true? What's authentic? And when your consciousness and your being and your heart goes from where it was running to what's in the moment, you're coming back into alignment with everything that is. That's what we want. And you're becoming more present in this moment as yourself rather than fragmented. It's that simple. It takes a lot of practice and work. And
I still want to drink though.
it's easy to trick yourself.
I mean, this is a good start, but like nothing's really fixed. You know, like my addictions and all these things that are just like still there. Like this is a really nice little process, and it did give me a pause, but I'm just sitting here going, oh, that was really scary. When can I get a drink? You know what I mean?
Okay.
That kind of
Well, it's going to keep working as long as you do it. That's the responsibility part. This will take you all the way home to yourself. And one of the scary things is once you start really looking at how much is inside, it's amazing how much there is to clear. And nobody's going to do it but you. And I'm not saying it's easy, I'm saying it's simple. Okay? And you go in and out of motivation. You know, I can't deal with this anymore, that was too scary. Okay, when you're suffering enough, you'll come back and go, okay, let's go to the next phase. And that's why, you know, if I do an individual session with somebody, I'm actually guiding you, doing it for you. What I really want is for everyone to leave me alone and learn how to do it themselves. Okay? Abby.
Thank you, Ken. Stemming from what you're saying now, sometimes we talk about that dispassionate compassion, be in this world, not of it. How do you find ways to be present in yourself or for someone else, including their suffering or their joy, in ways that you can feel moved, but on the other hand not get sucked in to their drama, their expectations, their needs, and also not get sucked into your own process?
Oh, what a great question. That's about 3 books worth. That's such a good question. Okay, we may have to break it down and bring you back if I go too far out. Okay. How to be in the world and not of it. How to be connected and compassionate without getting sucked into people's dramas.
Or your own.
Or your own, which is the same.
Yep.
Good call. Okay. Well, let's just look at compassion. Christopher, tell me when you need to shift, because you're probably getting there. Huh?
Yeah, a couple minutes.
Okay. I have a definition of compassion. That is the ability and willingness to feel another's pain without having to do anything about it.
Say that again.
The ability and willingness to feel another's pain without having to do anything about it. I don't need to get in there and fix you. There's nothing to fix that you can't fix yourself. Where we give our power away in so-called compassion, which is more bullshit Buddha, phony acting, emulating behavior, trying to be the way we think we should be, which is who we really are when we get to that core level of ourselves, but instead we're acting compassionate, we're doing compassion, we're faking it till we make it. we're practicing virtues. I'm going to be compassionate, I'm going to have forbearance, I'm going to be loving, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, blah, 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 because this is the way I'd like to be. Well, you're not. First be who you are first be who you really are, and then when you start to fall in love with yourself, you'll find that your true nature is compassion and non-judgment and love and equanimity and peace and joy and bliss. But you don't get there by short-circuiting it, by acting it, by doing affirmations, by trying to cover up what you're denying, because all of that's just a denial. So being willing and able to feel another's pain without doing something about it, you can't fake that. You got to be in that space. So our conversation is, how do you get there? You get there in exactly the way I've been saying over and over and over and over in 20 different ways or 1,000 different ways. In the moment of seeing another's suffering, notice what's going on inside of you. Their state, their situation, their suffering, as radical as this sounds, is completely irrelevant to your discovery of yourself, except to the extent that it triggered an experience inside of you that you are not comfortable with. And if you want to fix them, and if you're not comfortable with them, it's not them that you're not comfortable with. There is no them. There's no other. There's no aboutness, as I call it. There's nothing out there. There is, that's another level, that's a different part of the elephant in a different dimension of reality. But in the context of what I'm saying right now, when we're looking at ourselves, that person's suffering has made me uncomfortable. Ooh, good, I get to look at where I am resisting an experience of my own being, feeling something in this moment. Go into it. What am I experiencing? Ooh, when that person cries and acts like a victim, it really gets me upset. So I'm going to go help them so that they don't feel so victimized, and I'm going to, do whatever for them. Guess what? That's why healers blow out, and that's why burnout, that's why do-gooders are do-gooders instead of really being happy, sovereign beings who are radiating the truth that other people want to come and say, hey, help me be the way you are. What is it that you've got that I can do? Instead of, oh, here comes a sucker. Here's a person who's not really comfortable with themselves, and I'm going to do my poor me victim thing, and I'm going to suck them right in and get all their energy because they're going to help me, and I'll be in control, and they're going to feel like they're really wonderful because they're powerful and they don't have to feel what's going on inside of themselves, and the whole big codependency. All of this do-gooder helping stuff is just a mess, like most codependencies. Those where a bunch of people come in to have dinner, and then suddenly they can't leave. Do you remember that one? That was a long time. Yeah. Welcome to the twilight zone. Yeah.
So,
Well, hold it for just a second. Let me finish where I was going with Hallie about that, if I can remember. Or, no, that's not accurate. See, start watching language very, very carefully. And it wasn't a question of whether or not I can remember. It's a question of whether or not I can relax and it wants to come in and speak. Yeah, not my job to remember it. Nobody ever remembers anything. We don't think either. Okay, what's your next thought? I don't know. Okay, but if I'm the space, if I'm a good vehicle, a channel, a vessel for things to come through, then they'll come through. It's not my business. It's not my job. It's not my problem. My business is to be here and stay out of the way. And suddenly there are thoughts coming through and words happening. How does that happen? I'm not doing it. So where were
When
we?
you just said in terms of codependence, the
Yeah.
interdependence and independence and codependence is a reflection of what you're just saying. How do you stay distinct and not merge? How do you keep that sense of ego boundary, and on the other hand, we're all universal and one?
There are tricks to this, how we stay separated and not sucked into somebody else's drama, and we are all interconnected. But the drama and the codependency comes from, I'm not complete, there's something about my engagement with you that's going to make me feel better. Either addictive denial of what I don't want to feel, or attainment of something that I think you have, that I don't have, that I need from you. It's always a sellout. When you're really complete within yourself, codependency can't possibly exist because you're not dependent on anything that's that's out there. It's like, I'm complete, everything's fine, it's okay. You know, where's there to go? So, with the compassion, when we try to help somebody else, ask the question, why am I wanting to help this person? Where is it coming from? And there is one good place. There's real compassion. It's an overflowing of your love and joy that has it available to share. But this is a tricky reverse arrogance of victim and self-pity. The moment you look at somebody else and feel a little pity for them, you're basically doing a projection of your own self-pity and your own feeling of helplessness, that you can't do it yourself. Go, well, I'm just going to help them. In that instant, you are saying about that person, I don't really think they can do it on their own. And when you've done it on your own, you go, I am so happy for you that you're experiencing all that pain. It's like, how wonderful. I'm looking forward to when you really get to the bottom of it and get to experience what I'm experiencing, being okay with myself. Hurt all you want. The willingness to feel another's pain and not have to do anything about it, except celebrate that they have an opportunity to come home to themselves. I do it for them and them. I'm downgrading them. I'm blowing my energy to go to a lower frequency, although actually it's the same frequency if I get caught up in that. But if you are operating within yourself as healed, never, I'm not going to go crawl in the hole to help you. Now, both of us are in the hole. How can I help you get out? And I'm not even going to help you get out. I'm going to say, there's the stairs. It worked for me. Give it a try and see if you can climb out and join me, and then we'll play. This is not what healers do. The wounded healer, we're talking about the whole, like I said, chapters and books. The wounded healer is the one who is still wounded and somehow feels that helping others is going to help themselves because they haven't helped themselves yet.
And that's for so many of us in this room, as well as in our community, who are providers, healers, helpers, in any way practitioners of whether it's enlightenment or truth or service. We are always more vulnerable if we don't find a way to be ourselves.
Yeah, there's only one game. Come home to yourself first.
Welcome home.
Seek ye first the kingdom, and all else shall be added unto you. The kingdom of heaven is within. Although most of us don't know what within means, and this is what we're talking about. We're closing the gap between that esoteric statement and how it shows up in every moment of how am I not being authentic and truthful about what's going on with me.
So to being in a helping role is sometimes undermining someone else's ability to find it for themselves too. We can't do it for them, we can only provide them support or access to their doing it for themselves.
You're a guide, you're a catalyst.
Facilitating.
And you can't, there are techniques you can use your energy, you can do things, but the best is to be the space for someone else to heal in because you've already healed that space within you. So you're allowing them, you're no longer pressing on their buttons, you're no longer reacting to their delusions and ignorance and fears and distortions about themselves. You're not playing that game anymore. So you're now sanctuary, your safe space for them to simply start to be okay with who they really are. And it comes to the surface. That's why, if you're just being you, fully you, and people start crying around you, and they start baring their souls, because suddenly it's like they've stepped out of this contracted shell that they were in, and they can take a deep breath, and something starts to move inside of themselves, because there's permission in the space that you are. Because you're not reflecting back the same belief that they have. So you're not supporting that limited reality anymore. You're the space for somebody to open if they're ready to open. And stay out of their space. It's none of your business. And the other thing, great teaching from Del, which fits perfectly. This is faking it, so you can't use this to bypass having your experience and getting there, but it's a nice reminder to just go, not my problem. Okay. Carol first, Miss. Have I forgotten?
Well, you're talking about the definition of compassion, and it was the interaction that you just had here, where, and I don't know
Janai.
with Janai, where you say helping not to be with someone without fixing. For me, that it's the same thing as there's me, whatever that big me is, and there's this little voice that's a part of me going, whatever it was that the issue is. What I feel that little voice needs is just someone to listen. Not to say, I love you, because if I'm saying I love you, I can't hear a damn thing. I'm too busy talking.
Yep. Yeah.
I love you, damn it.
So it's getting really developing the muscle of learning to drop into quiet in order to listen. And transformation then happens. We have no idea what direction it's going to take. It's the listening that's important, and that's the compassion.
Yeah.
And whether I'm listening to the voice inside of me, or if I'm listening to you, that interaction of listening is the healing. And I'm working with a teacher now as well, and he said something. It's Russell Delman is in California, the name of the teacher I'm working with. But we're looking for solutions, and a solution is something that occurs at the level of the mind. And in the process of listening, there's the potential of finding a resolution, and that happens in the body. And whatever the body is connected to, which to me is very, very big. So I'm just expanding on the compassion piece that you were talking about. That it's the same whether I'm listening to me or I'm listening to you.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
The thing that I have found in my life is, in my experience of compassion for another, has been not quite, not quite as impersonal as I'm hearing the words be. It is experiential witnessing. That does not mean that you necessarily are fixing somebody, but that you are tapping into your own ability to feel what they are feeling. And I think that that's the place. And I think that what you're saying about not necessarily but not necessarily wanting to fix it or get involved in your own process, but enough to tap into your own ability on a feeling level to experience what the person you're listening to is, in my opinion, true compassion.
Okay. Everything you said completely integrates with what I said. Let me see if I can fine-tune it for you a little bit, though. There's some discrimination there. Again, different levels of it. Primary is your ability to feel. That's number one. Then that allows you to feel others. It's, when I'm talking about compassion, we're talking about how you deal with the feelings you're feeling. Okay? Do you get caught up in resistance or avoidance or drama because you're feeling their feelings? Or can you really be feeling them, which is the ultimate intimacy? Okay, if I'm talking to you and I'm really healed in my feeling body, I'm one with you. I'm feeling everything you're feeling. I'm just not going to get caught up, what you call dispassionate. I'm just not going to buy into the drama part of it. But I'm fully alive to the feeling of it. Okay? So where a lot of people go, particularly very empathic people, who are the extremes, but it's all of us, is when we're uncomfortable with what we're feeling around other people, we tend to want to protect ourselves. That creates separation. And I always come across very sensitive people who go, oh, I'm feeling too much, I have to learn how to protect myself from people. I need to put, a white aura around me, and I need to pull back. I can't be around other people suffering. And I just look at them and go, you're killing and separating yourself from the greatest gifts that you are.
Yeah.
From your sensitivity, from full on, absolutely awake, feeling everything, okay? The problem is that they're running from it and resisting it rather than feeling it because they haven't gone through what we're talking about. So more feeling is better. It's just an expansion of consciousness again. It's like, I'm now having a greater experience than I did before. What could be wrong with that? You left me a good message this morning.
Yeah. So I've been working with Ken for a long time, and I don't know if all of you know that I love words, and I love burning words on bamboo. And I've had the chance to observe myself in the place of wanting to fix someone, or overgiving, or the need to be loved. If I gave that, you'll love me, or you'll like me, and yet the other layers are seeing these people sharing a vulnerable place that's so raw and new, and also me experiencing that next level of myself and going, wow, I do that. And the most uncomfortable stuff I've been going through is at night I kept a notebook by my bed, and I get woken up with, I was not authentic with that person. I was wearing this mask and I pretended. And it's very little things, but it's waking me up at night. And I'm writing them down. Some people have actually called and said, this is how I was being, and I want you to know that I don't like that, and that's not really me. So I wonder if you want to share, and that can help other people.
Okay, is there a question in there?
Yeah, it's just, it seems to be coming in, and yet do I go call all these people? Because when I'm really not, there's so many masks that I wear, and yet I know that I am pure love, and that's who I am, and yet the authenticity.
Okay, so that's enough before I lose it. I know that I'm pure love, yet, which just countered that statement. You don't know you're pure love. Part of you knows, part of you still doesn't know. I know I'm pure love, but yet, that's a yes but, okay? So a lot of us have some truth. And what's important, this is where I always talk about the 99% and the 1%. If you're going to grow, what's already working doesn't need any work, okay? Like I say, I can sit here and tell people, oh, you're wonderful, you're light, you're love, you're bliss, you're joy, you're God, you're one with everything. Great. What matters is I point out to you what's inauthentic. It's a dirty job that somebody has to do it, okay? I feel like the real spiritual gift, the real gift a spiritual friend will give you is to point out what's in the way, not what's already working. Okay, yeah, we all like to get praise, we feel good, it goes in our egos, we keep going. It's not where the work work is. That's not where your growth is. Your growth is where you're limited and where you're stuck and where you're in denial, where you're not being authentic. That's where you mine the treasures. And those are the doorways home to your awakening. The other stuff isn't. It's already there. It's already who you are. You don't have to do anything to be who you already are, but you do have to do something to get out of the delusion and the denial and the falsity and the inauthenticity of who you're not. That you can take responsibility for and you can do something about. So, when you ask the question, another answer, it wasn't quite a question, but something to say, should I call all of these people or not? Okay, that's a should, and we got an answer for that, right? It doesn't matter what you do, it matters where you're coming from. This is the whole other teaching on amorality. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's only being truthful in this moment. That's a higher level of teaching in transitional teachings. If you tell somebody there's no right and no wrong, and they're a criminal, out of integrity, immoral person, they'll go, oh great, I can do anything I want, go out and do horrible things. That's not a teaching that somebody's ready for if they're not advanced enough to understand that what you're really saying to them is in each moment, find your truth. Be authentic about what is real, and you will be in alignment with the universe. You will make the right decision always. But it could be very different from one thing to another. There's no formula. That's a middle zone. That's for beings who are still children in a way, spiritually, and need somebody else to tell them what's right and wrong. That's an evolution. I don't know what number that would be, 300 or something, or 200. No, below 200, actually, exactly. I don't know that system too well. I know 200 is a cutoff point. So at a certain point, your reality starts becoming internally generated, and your morality is who you are and how you live in alignment with what's true with yourself in each moment. It's not about what somebody told you from outside of yourself. So, should you call them? I don't know. If it feels right, call them. If it doesn't, no. But that's not the issue. The issue is that it's not an issue. The wonderful thing about what's happening is you're now catching yourself doing all of this.
Uncomfortable.
Yay! Yay! So what did I say? Anything that happens in your reality that causes discomfort is another opportunity for you to go deeper and find out something that's going on inside of you. It's lovely when you start being embarrassed about yourself. Okay? Now, Lisa's really, been going much deeper into this, so, is there anyone here that hasn't done something or a lot of things? I mean, God, my list is endless, where I want to say to myself, oh my God, I don't believe I did that. Ooh, yuck. I hope I made such a fool of myself, or I was so obnoxious or needy or manipulative, or I was over the top, bringing attention to myself, and on and on and on and on and on. We've all got that. And most of us are buying our own lies and thinking we're fooling everybody else. The real joke is everybody sees your stuff, but we've all agreed not to press each other's buttons. And I like to make agreements with the people that want to get close to me is, let me know every time you see that, okay? I want to know where I'm off so I can move through that and get it out of the way. Find out what's underneath it that's unhealed. So you start inviting in, oh, that's uncomfortable. So Lisa's standing courageously in the discomfort of starting to notice that second layer, the reactive self and the false self, that those things are operational. She's gained enough distance from those things where instead of being completely identified with them and just reactive and lost in her persona, she notices it every time it comes up, and she notices it as, not only do I notice that I did that, but it doesn't feel good. Remember, this is what I was saying before. It won't feel good because it's out of alignment with what your truth is. It's out of alignment with what's real. It's not authentic. It won't feel good. That's not what yourself feels like. So every time you get I gotta go fix this, it's because you just did something that is not who you are and is painful to yourself. You want to feel that pain. It's trying to tell you something. All right?
Uncomfortably
So
wonderful.
you're doing great. Just keep doing it. You know, wakes you up in the middle of the night and go, oh my God, great. You just had a healing and awakening revelation. The important thing is that you are learning what to do with it. This again is what I talk about, closing the gap. A lot of people get these things and they just spin them back out again. Oh God, I can't believe I did that. I'm so bad. Okay, and they just go into another loop of I'm not okay. There's something wrong with me. What's different here is that we actually have the technology every bit of the way, as far as I can tell so far, to come all the way home if you do the work. If you really want to do it, it will clear everything eventually.
So I think that's what, I asked a question, should I call all these people? You just said what I was trying to ask, is what do I do with it? When it comes up, I go, okay, so I got 5 things on my list in my way of being yesterday. And I get to observe them and just be with it and celebrate the fact that I could even see it and go, okay, now what?
Okay. What is it that's happening? What's true?
I went blank. So
No, that's too fast. No, you can
just
go
be,
through it.
be with it.
I'll help you.
Okay?
I'm uncomfortable. Right?
Oh.
You just saw a behavior. It just came to you. And you're feeling the incongruity inside yourself as a discomfort. Start there.
It's very uncomfortable.
Oh, what fun. Doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be. It wants to be. It's a part of yourself. There's nothing to do about it. You don't have to celebrate it. The celebration comes from it after you welcome it back. Words are tricky because if I say allow it, then you'll kind of try to allow. If I say love it, you'll try to love it. If you, okay, it's subtler. It's just stop. Just stop. And notice is the cleanest word I've ever come up with. Just notice it. Just, you're not trying to make it go away. You're not trying to fix it. Just notice it. As Carol said so beautifully, you're having a conversation with it. You're listening to it. She's using listening, I'm saying noticing. It's the same, just being with. But you can't do being with. You can't try, so it gets subtle. The mind has all these little levels and layers of tricks that can come in. Okay? But when we're doing this, it just kind of stops, doesn't it? There's nowhere to go. Your mind's run out of things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you're uncomfortable. That discomfort is who you are, giving you information about where you're out of alignment because of the conditioning that's had you act in ways that are inauthentic, that once you catch it you get embarrassed. But even embarrassing, that's just another loop. That's another racket. That's getting into, oh, I'm so bad, blah, 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 blah. And you can go deeper into that. I'm feeling really embarrassed. Whew. What's under there? Ooh, there's a part of me that's ashamed of who I am and afraid to really have this experience. Oh, who are you? And you just drop down to the bottom of everything, and all you find, by the way, my personal guarantee for everyone, I have never in 30, 40 years of doing this with people, have ever found anything when we get to the bottom but pure love.
Mm.
That's everything. It's just God. It's everything. It's just been distorted by these layers. The layers aren't real. One of my jobs is to help you find the courage to take these steps, because I am absolutely 100% certain, guaranteed, that I know what you're going to find when you get there. So I hold space for people to go there. And if they tune in enough and feel enough trust, then they do it. And it works. It always works.
Okay, this disruptive woman that keeps walking in and out, I guess I'll get brave and ask my question. So my question is, I'm struggling with attachment to security. So I'm going through a divorce after a 22-year marriage, and I have a successful business that I started. And I'm struggling with making a choice about whether I should go after the business. And so it's, because I'm trying to decide if I'm struggling between, do I really deserve this, and is this an empowerment thing, because I'm resisting going after the business, and I'm letting my soon-to-be ex, I'm basically in, so I'm having a hard time detaching myself from the love that I've had for this person, so I'm going through, pretty much I'm naked. I pretty much lost everything the last couple of weeks. And so I'm struggling with, I love this person, the right thing to do is to give them what they want, but yet I should love myself, and I should love myself, and I should do what's right for me that will set me up for the rest of my life financially, but that's an attachment.
Okay, let's start with what loving yourself really means.
Okay.
And there are a bunch of shoulds in there.
Yeah.
And a bunch of voices going, maybe I should be this, maybe I should be that, I should do this, I'm a good person, da, 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 da. Okay, none of that's true.
Okay.
None of it's relevant. Some of it might turn out to be true, but you won't get the answer by hanging out at that level of your being. Okay, so I won't or can't, and even if I could, I wouldn't, so give you an answer, oh, you should do this.
Right.
Because that'd just be another should. My only agenda with you is to help you come home to yourself, who's the one that knows. So we get to look at what's in the way that's joyously, blissfully, gratefully coming into your field so that you get to clear now. You know, all this has always been there. Now it's time for you to find out what you've been attached to. And
Well, I'm not wanting to be free. I'm really quite pissed off about it. You know, I'm being told to surrender, and I'm like, I know I wanted to write this book and everything, but really now I really want my security back. You know what I
okay,
mean?
so let me ask
Resisting freedom.
Let me ask you a more focused question, because you're always going to be right here, right now. It's an old cliche practically. But what I want you to do is, for a moment, stop looking at the husband, stop looking at the money, stop looking at your ideas of what you think is the right way to be and who you should be and how you should be and what's right and what's wrong, and just notice what's uncomfortable for you.
Uncertainty and insecurity.
Good, good. So that's where your answers lie. Okay? Going deeper into the feeling of uncertainty is where you, or let's say avoiding that, not wanting to really experience the uncertainty is what's causing you to jump into your story.
And I get that I'm chasing something that nothing's ever certain. I mean, life
Okay.
is constantly
Well,
changing.
just what I was speaking. Your mind knows that, but your being doesn't yet.
Well, my being has been living uncertain for the last month and
Right.
not wanting to get out of bed. So, you know, I am being with it. You know, I'm being very uncomfortable with it.
Okay, so this is a trick of the mind. What you're actually experiencing that's uncomfortable is not the unknown, but your resistance to it. Okay, so you want to go deeper into the experience of your uncertainty, just like we've been doing. Not to make it go away or to fix it, but to find out what it really is. And I just told you what it was. I kind of gave you the shortcut. But if you just drop in and allow in this moment, we'll do a little abbreviated process with it. Okay, and just feel that uncertainty. And you know what? It's true. It's absolutely true for you, for everybody. certainty is an illusion that we know what's going on. And we can only experience the comfort of certainty by limiting what it is that we have as our frame of control. Okay? I can be very certain about very, very limited things, but I can't really be certain that I'm going to make it home tonight. I can be fairly certain, but you make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and pretty soon the whole thing's unknown. All right? So the way you get comfortable with that is by starting to experiencing it. Been talking about. By starting to experience it, and you will find out that it's nothing to resist or be afraid of, that your mind has labeled a deeper state of being with this thing called uncertainty.
And I get that, but I still have to make a decision
Okay.
about what I'm going to do.
What if you become more present in the moment and allow the decision to become obvious?
And I kind of have been doing that. Just sit back, let it unfold. Let's see what happens.
Okay, no, that's still a bypass. Okay, this is tricky. That's all the ways your mind knows what you think you'd like to be doing, but you're not really doing it. You're just saying it to yourself. Okay? In this moment, because the decision is arising, that means you're not really being in this moment. Okay? With what you're feeling. So let's just do uncertainty again. What's it like? What's your experience?
I'm very impatient, and I want to know what my new reality is going to be.
Okay. Impatience. That's uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. I hate it.
Okay. Okay, well, then you will be stuck in it forever.
You want me to love being patient?
No, I want you to just be impatient.
That's what you feel.
See, loving it's a trick. You see, you've been educated by all of these shoulds, and we're just, maybe for the first time, showing you a little bit what it feels like to just be authentically where you're at. I'm impatient, I feel stuck, I'm uncertain. Oh, cool. Anybody in here not have or never have those experiences? Guess what? That's what it's about. It's the avoidance of it. It's going, I hate it. I don't want to be here. I don't like being uncertain. I don't like feeling stuck. That is the problem, is that you're not dropping deeper into your experience of this moment. You're resisting it. So I'm pointing out to you, we're kind of just honing in, and I'm showing you that when you think you're really dealing with it, you're not. Because there's nothing really to deal with but what you're experiencing
My
in this
motto
moment.
is just 10 minutes at a time, and I ask myself, what do I need to do to feel good right now? How can I love this life right now? And I just go from moment to moment,
Nope.
not making a decision, and just,
No, those are all shoulds. Those are ideal behaviors that are not authentic for you, they're a lie. It's what you're telling yourself you'd like to be, but you're not. Until you actually arrive there and can speak that, you're just confusing yourself. You're not okay with what's going on. You're uncomfortable.
Right,
That's what's true.
that's true.
You're uncertain, and you're resisting that, and you don't know what to do with it, and you're stuck and scared. Okay?
Try not to be, but yes.
Yeah, don't try not to be.
That's
If you're
resistance.
trying not to be, you're resisting it, see? See, and
Okay,
you're
so-
hearing all this still with your head. So no matter what I say, it will go in on that frequency, because that's where your listening is coming from at the moment, but some of this will plant some seeds.
Yeah, I get it. I admit I'm scared.
Just take a deep breath and settle in, and we love you. Okay? The guidance that you're looking for comes from stopping and being really honest with yourself. Not judgmentally honest, not like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Just let it be what it is. It's true. And it's a very vulnerable place to be.
And
But
don't make a choice.
You're in a room full of human beings who've all had the same experience and totally relate to what you're going through, including me, especially me.
And so do you just hold off on making a choice, and you're just going to be?
You can't make a choice right now in the state you're in because you're not aligned with what's true for you in this situation. So whatever choice you make, you're going to be guessing. Or flip a coin, because it really doesn't matter what choice you make. But we're looking for not the right answer, but whether or not you can use this situation to come home to who you really are, to find your truth, to be free. That's what this is about. It's not about any of the details. Those are irrelevant. Those are things that have come up on your movie screen to reflect back to you all of the places where you're scared and controlling. All this bad stuff that's coming up is good stuff.
Because I have to see it. Welcome
It's your way home.
Yeah.
It's your way home.
Right.
It's not bad. It's wonderful. And it simply
That's
says
something
that,
else lately.
yeah, the universe has said, well, we think she's ready. Let's bring her some lessons. It's time. She can't hide anymore. So it's a gift. Usually you notice that a little more when you threw it out the other side, otherwise it's another platitude from some guy that doesn't understand how bad it is in your reality, but yeah, it is. Whoa, wait a minute, look what happened already.
Time.
It's 11:15.
Not yet, but we're on our way.
I mean, tomorrow we're at 11:15.
We have about 15 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, that's just another frequency of what we're saying when everything stops and we're all just sitting here. I'll always notice my impatience, like, okay, we need to do something. Although tonight it wasn't. It's like, ooh, this is nice. This sitting in this, in many ways, is more important than anything that can be said. And I'll take you through a little meditation, just a quickie. We'll just keep going from where we're at with this. Ramana Maharshi, when he was enlightened, refused to speak for 11 years, basically saying, there's nothing to say about this. I can't find the words. I'm reminded of something that I haven't thought of in years. When Buddha was enlightened, 3 angels came to visit him. And they said, Buddha, the state that you're in is so magnificent. You must share it with the world. And it said that Buddha said, well, those that can understand what I would say don't need to hear me say it. Those that can understand it, no matter what I say, they're not going to get it. So why should I speak? And the angels said to them, to Buddha, for those who are right on the edge, your words will make a difference. And thus began Buddha's career as a teacher. For those on the edge that could hear his words, it might make a difference to somebody somewhere. So notice what's going on right now. Notice with no focus. Could be a sound. Could be your breath going in and out. Could be feelings, position of your body. Just what is. You might feel something wonderful. Stillness. The peace. You might also find things coming to the surface, like impatience, or mind chatter, or physical sensation that's uncomfortable. or blissful. And it's not your job to do anything about it. Except to allow it to be what it is. It already is. Problems are when we get in the way and think we need to do something about what is. So allow the process to unfold on its own. Wonderful Zen saying, sitting silently, doing nothing. Spring comes and the grass grows by itself. Sitting silently, just being. Minding our own business, which is to be present with ourselves. Seek ye first the kingdom. All attachment disappears in this space. What's there to be attached or unattached to? I just am. And everything is. I relax into the experience of myself as it is in this moment. There's nothing to do, no place to get to, nothing to fix. And whatever arises that in any way doesn't seem like what I want, I welcome as a gift. Recognizing that the only problem, the only suffering, and the only pain is what I'm causing myself. By separating from myself, by separating from what is, creating internal conflict and resistance. So knowing this, I just settle back again and say yes to what is instead of no. Just breathe in yes. I settle into yes. I allow myself to be a yes. It's very simple. It's profoundly simple. But not always easy. Take a few deep breaths. welcome. Thank you. Last time everyone got up and left sort of suddenly, and I felt like I'd missed something because I didn't get to express my gratitude and thanking everybody for coming and for being who you are and for creating an opportunity for me to be this, to share this, because it's just a joy for me. Makes me feel like I've got some reason to be here. So thank you all for being you.
Thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
Thanks for our hosts.